Okay, so I am not an avid movie watcher at all. I promise you can name any movie that you're like, oh, I know everybody's seen this. I promise you I haven't seen it, girl. I have not seen it. Your Harry Potters, your Screams, Lord of the Rings. I haven't seen it, okay? But what I am is an avid bad movie watcher, okay? You want me to sit through a well-shot, well-casted film with amazing talent and a great script? It's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. But you want me to sit through a movie that is so low budget that like I'm straining to hear them and I'm confused as to what the plot is? Oh baby, I'm there. I'm there. Like, I like my bad movies so bad. I'm not talking B movie level. I'm talking lower than that. Lower tier, okay? I'm not talking, oh, it was just kind of bad. You know, it had some well-known actors and it was a little low budget. The budget was like $1 million. No, I'm talking all you had was an idea, a cell phone, and a dream. You had your friends, a cell phone, and a dream. That's what I'm talking. That's how bad I want my movies. You don't know how many times I've been on Tubi and been looking through the film, seen something that looked interesting, clicked on it, and went, it's not bad enough. It's just not bad enough. So anyways, I was looking for a movie that I'd watched before and I didn't remember the name of on Tubi. And so I was looking through like different producers to see if maybe the producer of the movie I was looking for produced any of the movies I was looking at. And I came across Maverick 25. Now, I'm not sure if this is a channel or a publisher, but I went on their website. The mecca of bad movies. Bad hood movies galore. I was scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. I was in heaven. And so as I was scrolling, I saw a poster for a movie called Tiffany the Doll. And when I saw that poster, I knew I had to watch the trailer. And when I watched the trailer, I knew I had to watch this movie and make a video on it because it just looked so bad, yet so good. And as I'm sure you can ascertain from the title and the thumbnail, this movie is about a killer, what? You guessed it, sex doll. So at the start of this movie, we see a woman with a 613 laid bundle. I actually just learned what 613 was, by the way. We see this woman in her car and she's calling her man Charles and she's like, Charles, you need to pick up. We can, assume that Charles is probably a cheater and she knows where Charles is at. So she pulls up on him at a hotel. She goes and gets a bat out of her trunk and she's like, oh, I'm about to get this man. I'm about to get him. So she goes into the hotel room and on the bed, she sees a sex doll. Now, all of the dolls in this film are played by humans. I mean, it'd probably be more funny and low budget if it was played by actual dolls, but they are played by real humans. So she sees Tiffany the doll laying on the bed like this. And she's like, oh, look at this dirty man, like, ugh. So she goes around the hotel room and she's looking for him and she pulls up on the closet. She's like, oh, I know he's in there. So she's getting the bat and she's ready to beat his head in. Opens the door, his body falls right out. And so she goes off, she runs out of the room screaming, which makes no sense to me because you were literally about to kill that man with a bat. But you're scared that somebody got to him first. You should be thankful. And as she runs out of the room, we get a shot of Tiffany watching her leave, and then she slowly turns back to the camera. And then we get our title screen, Tiffany the Doll. So we cut to a place called Guilty Pleasures, which will be a reoccurring location in this movie. And it is the kind of shop that you think it is, okay? It's the place that you think it is, okay? And it's kind of funny because at the beginning when they show this, they first show this place, they give us this montage of customers walking around and looking at the products. And yes, you will see nude products. It doesn't take much of watching Tubi to realize that Tubi absolutely allows certain types of nudity. I have seen, a chesticle in my day on Tubi, okay? So, be forewarned. Be forewarned. But what I thought was really funny in this scene is there's just this lady who's just randomly gently twerking in the aisle. So they're having a presentation at Guilty Pleasures for their new line of dolls. And it's funny because there's these two guys talking about how, like, the one guy bought the last model of the doll and it broke on him in a week. And we'll soon learn these dolls cost $10,000. Maybe the last one cost $5,000. If it broke in a week, bro, you need to get your money back. You need to get your money back. It broke in a week? A week? So we then see the lady who's doing the presentation that I just wrote down in my notes as Miss Wet and Wavy Nicki Minaj Bob, because her hair looks exactly like a hairstyle that Nicki Minaj had. I think at the end of the movie, we learned what her name was, but I didn't write it down. It wasn't important at that point. So she goes into the presentation and she talks about how she took last year's feedback from them and she created something even better than before. And she said that she got a group of scientists to work on it with her, which, I'm sorry, do you scientists not have anything better to do, like solving global warming? Really, a doll? That's what you're working on? Really? I think her priorities are mixed up. So she introduced her first new doll, Henry, which is the male version of the doll, again played by a human man. And she gets one of the ladies in the audience to come up and touch Henry's chest. And this entire scene felt very much like a slave auction. First of all, the name Henry already seems very old-timey. And then the girl comes up and she says, Henry. I don't know. It felt very slave auction to me. This whole thing feels very slave auction-y. I'm sure there was no slave undertones in this film because that would be a little too highbrow for them. But still, it felt very slave auction-y. She then introduces Tiffany the doll. Tiffany the doll is supposed to be Henry's female version, but I guess better because she's fully customizable. You can customize her height, skin color, hair color, pretty much everything. And she says one of the best features is that she doesn't talk back. She then tells the audience that these dolls cost $10,000, which they are a little like, girl, be for real. But she says, don't worry, we do layaways. So we cut to one of our main characters named Cherie, and she's at home and she's cooking breakfast for her man named Dustin. But Dustin is like, I gotta go to work, baby. And he leaves and she's kind of upset about the fact that he's not staying for breakfast. So she calls up her friend Keisha. And Keisha is the one that came up and rubbed Henry, very strangely, back at Guilty Pleasures. And so Keisha tells Cherie that she wants to tell her about the guy she was with last night. But we further learn in the movie that she didn't get the Henry doll for months. So what was the point of that? I don't know. It wasn't Henry. We then cut to Cherie's boyfriend Dustin at work with his friends Zach and Scott. And Scott is telling Dustin and Zach how his girlfriend got him one of the dolls for their anniversary gift, which is really weird. And they're kind of commentating on that. And Dustin's saying, I personally would never do that. Y'all are weird. I would never buy a doll. So we're back at Guilty Pleasures. We will be back at Guilty Pleasures a lot. So Keisha brings Cherie in to show her the dolls. And justifiably, Cherie is like, girl, this is crazy. These look like real people. I don't know. I don't like it. And Keisha's like, you should get you one. I just put mine on finance and I'll get it in 3 months. And Cherie's like not really having it. But Keisha's like, I don't know, like maybe your man will stay home if you have one. Which is like implying that he's cheating, which we see in the movie he's not. He's just always working. Like he's just a workaholic, and that is why he's not home. He's busy getting money so they can live in that nice 2-story house. It's probably a townhouse. So we're still at Guilty Pleasures, and I'm not sure if this is the same day or this is a different day. It's really confusing timing wise because there's only a few locations in this movie as to when things are. Outside of the fact that at the end of the movie they talk about how it's been months, but besides that, this could all happen in one day and I wouldn't know. So a guy walks in to Guilty Pleasures and he was actually at the presentation, but he was like hiding in the corner, like behind the shelves. Like, I guess he was embarrassed to be there. I don't know. So he goes to the owner, whose name is Mark, and he's like, hey, I'm really trying to get one of these and I want it today. And Mark says something funny. He's like, so this guy's like really, really nerdy and looks like the businessy type. And Mark says, no offense, but are you looking for the Tiffany or the Henry doll? Is him being nerdy mean he's gay? I don't know. I don't know. Or is it the fact that like he was hiding so he didn't want to be seen, so he's thinking like he's into the Henry doll? I don't know. I truly do not know. And he's like, no. I want the Tiffany doll and I want it today. And so he pays for the Tiffany doll in full on a credit card so he could get it that day. And they said, we'll get out to your car in 10 minutes. So back at Guilty Pleasures, but a different day, one of the workers comes in and she talks to the owner, Mark, and the cashier who checked out Donald, who is the nerdy guy, and says, like, did you hear about our customer on the news? And Mark is like, I don't watch the news. It's too depressing, so I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, one of our customers, who the one that came in the other day, who paid in full for the doll, like, he ended up dead in a hotel room with the doll. And they're like, girl, I don't remember him. Which I'm like, are people really buying these dolls that much? You don't remember somebody who just paid $10,000 to get a doll that day? I don't know. But they're like, girl, I don't know what you're talking about. So we see Donald in the hotel room with the Tiffany doll, like, posed up like this. And he puts on some music and he starts dancing like this. And he gets 2 cups of water and drinks one and also gives her one. She don't need a drink, baby. She's not real. I don't know. Anyways, there's a knock at the door and it is one of the people from the hotel and they're saying, here's the ice you ordered. And he's like, did I order ice? Maybe I did. And he just takes the ice. He doesn't think anything strange about that. And he goes back in the hotel room and he sees that Tiffany's not on the bed anymore. And he's like, oh, you playing hide and seek. And as he goes into the bathroom, we see her like hand grip the closet door as she comes out. And she knocks him over the head with the iron. And he's dead. So we cut to Scott at his house, the one whose girlfriend gave him the doll for their anniversary. And he's sitting there with the doll. And they're like, him and his girlfriend are like chatting and like laughing like, oh yeah, haha, this doll, this and that. And he's like staring at the doll and he says like, it's weird. It's like she's got a soul. And I guess the girlfriend took this as like he was in love with the doll. And he's like, it's not like that. And she's like, man, forget you. And leaves. Which I'm like, what did you expect? To be honest, what did you expect out of a gift like that? I don't know. And so once the girlfriend leaves, he's still staring at the doll and she blinks. And he's like, man, what the heck? Like, you can blink? I just saw you blink. Which is weird because this entire movie, the dolls are blinking. The people who are playing the dolls are blinking the entire movie from beginning to end. They're blinking. So I truly don't understand why he's so surprised that the doll could blink. Maybe she been blinking. So he gets up and leaves the room. And when he comes back, like clockwork, Tiffany is not there. He's like, man, what the heck? And he thinks it's his girlfriend who came back to mess with him. So he calls out to her like, you know, why are you playing games on me? And when he turns around, he sees Tiffany standing behind him with a knife. Tiffany starts to try to attack him, but he gets out his phone and he calls Dustin. And he's like, man, this doll's trying to kill me. You gotta come help me. So Dustin calls Zach and they both head over to Scott's house and they find him knocked out and they take him to the hospital. So at the hospital, which is clearly a cafe because you can see in the corner like what looks like coffee grounds and like snacks. But okay, we'll pretend it's a hospital. So at the hospital, the nurse comes out and she tells them that Zach is okay. He just suffered a concussion from being hit over the head with a blunt object, which really makes no sense because why would Tiffany hit him over the head when she had a knife? Okay, sure. We then get a scene of Zach going home, which is just a hotel room. There's a lot of things where they want us to believe that it's something else, but it's not what they're saying it is. Zach walks in, and of course, there's Tiffany laying on the couch waiting for him. Now he's thinking like his, I guess, girlfriend is the one who did it because he calls her and he's like, why did you put this doll in my house? You're the only one who has a key. And she's like, what are you talking about? And she then hears him get attacked on the phone. So the thing is that Tiffany does stab Zach, but he just kind of, there's like scenes of him like riding around still stabbed for like days. You're not gonna go to the hospital or anything for that wound? It looks like it's in his hand. Like, you're not gonna do anything? We also get like a couple of scenes of Tiffany killing random people, or one of the Tiffany dolls killing random people. It's really not that important though. So it's what we can assume is maybe the next day. And Dustin comes downstairs and sees a Tiffany doll in his living room. So I left this out, but Zach also calls Dustin frantically telling him that the Tiffany doll attacked him. Yet he's very calm about a Tiffany doll being in his house that he didn't purchase. He doesn't think anything of it, even though you've had two of your friends call you and tell you that this doll has tried to kill them. He thinks they're just crazy and they don't know what they're talking about. So he simply assumes that Cherie bought the doll, and he decides to make her breakfast in bed, and he comes upstairs and he thanks her for the surprise downstairs. She's like, "Oh, honey, you're welcome." And he's like, "I love you. I gotta go to work." She's like, "Okay, I'll see you later." And so then she goes downstairs and sees the Tiffany doll, and she's like, "Man, this man bought a Tiffany doll. I can't believe him." So what were you saying you're welcome for the surprise downstairs? She's just thanking him and she doesn't know what he's talking about. Weird. But she thinks that Dustin bought the doll, and Dustin thinks she bought the doll. So where did the doll come from? So we're back at Dustin's job, and Zach comes in frantic, like, "Man, these dolls trying to kill me, but I'm not going down without a fight." Like, he's flipping his lid, and Dustin is like, "You need to calm down." He's like, "You don't believe me? You don't believe me?" And he's like, "Not really, but maybe I think you're losing it a little bit." And everyone's been telling him he's losing it. And he's like, "Man, I'm not losing it. You know, these dolls trying to kill you. I'm telling you, they're out in droves killing people." Again, for some reason, Dustin just doesn't believe them or put two and two together. What is it with men in horror movies? They just don't believe anything. So later that day, Keisha, Cherie, and Keisha's not man. She says that he's not her man, but they're clearly on a double date together. I don't know. They're at a hookah place, and Cherie comes in and she sits down and she's like, "Oh wait, I left something in the car." So she goes back out to the car and she brings the Tiffany doll back with her. Why? I don't know. Why do you need to smoke hookah with the doll? I really don't know. But she does. And so then Dustin comes to their hookah double date, and he looks visibly uncomfortable with the Tiffany doll being there, and everyone can pick up on it. And he just tries to brush it off like, "Oh no, it's nothing. It's just work stuff. You know, it's nothing." But Cherie clearly can tell something is bothering him. We then cut back to Guilty Pleasures again. And the worker from earlier that talked about Donald being killed and it being on the news comes in, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I know I'm not crazy, but the dolls are moving." And the other worker is like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "The dolls are moving." And she's like, "You're crazy." And she's like, "I'm about to get up out of here. I'm calling Mark and I'm about to get up out of here." So she goes to lock the doors, but customers decide to come in. So she tries to ring them up really quickly. And when she goes to let them out, they see that the doors are locked. And then all the lights shut off. I guess the lights come on, which I don't really remember happening, but the lights are on later. And she goes to try to get her purse from behind the counter to call Mark, the owner. And when she pops up from the counter, all the dolls are waiting there, and Tiffany is holding her purse. And they're all just like posed like. So she runs, she grabs her purse, and she gets up out of there. So we go back to Cherie and Dustin, and now they're in the car, and Cherie's like, "Okay, you have to tell me what's wrong. Like, you're clearly bothered. Just tell me what's wrong." And he's like, "It's just Zach. He told me that these dolls are killing people, and I thought he was crazy at first, but now I'm starting to believe him. And like, I don't know, you know, it's just kind of freaking me out." And she's like, "Well, how could you say that? You're the one who bought the doll." He like, "No, I didn't. You bought the doll." And so they're kind of looking at each other like, and so Dustin's like, "Where is the doll?" And she's like, "I left it in my car." So she decides to go back to the car and see if the doll is still there. And of course, when she goes back to the car, Tiffany is not there anymore. And Dustin's like, "Oh, nah, Zach is right. The dolls are about to get us." So Zach leaves her in the car, and he goes into the house to get his two guns, which he keeps in the kitchen, just like in the drawer. It's a bit weird, to be honest. I don't know. You got your cutlery. He's got his knife, his fork, his spoon, gun. You got your can opener, your wine bottle opener, Glock. I don't know, but, you know, to each their own. He gets his two guns out of the kitchen, and as he's running out of the house, one of the dolls, not Tiffany, but I guess they're all Tiffany, but they just look different, runs after him with a knife. And this scene was so funny because she's supposed to be a doll, so she's running extremely stiff with the knife like. So they get in the car and they drive off and they're freaking out and they're like, what are we gonna do? And Dustin's like, we're gonna have to find Zach. Which Zach, while rightfully so has lost his mind, he still has lost his mind. We don't need to know where Zach is, in my opinion. So Dustin decides to track down Zach's location and they go to where he is. So Zach goes to Mark's house and he's like banging on the door and Mark is talking to some woman. I don't know who she is. They're in separate rooms. And he's like, man, who is that making all that noise? And she's like, I don't know who it could be at this time of night. Which is funny because all the other parts that are supposed to be nighttime are shot at night, but this specific scene of Zach knocking on the door, it's clearly daytime. Like it's broad daylight. So the woman opens the door and he's like, I need to talk to Mark right now. And she's like, he's asleep, like you can't talk to him. And he pulls out a gun and he forces his way in because he needs to see Mark right now. So Zach forces Mark to go upstairs to the control room for the dolls. For some reason they have that in there. And in there we see Miss Nicki Minaj Wavy Bob, which I believe is Mark's girlfriend, in there with all the dolls that she created. And she also has a gun. And she goes on this long monologue about how she created these dolls and she knows they have the capability to kill people, but they only kill people who are harmful. So if you got killed, like you clearly did something wrong to deserve to be killed. Like that's it. And my dolls are safe. And so she decides to give Tiffany the gun that she has. She gives Tiffany the gun and turns around like, yeah, what you think Tiffany did? Tiffany shot her. Yeah. Killed by her own creation. So Dustin then shows up to Mark's house. Dustin and Zach meet up and they say that they're going to like find the dolls and kill them, but we never see that. They just meet up in the house and go, okay, let's get out of here. So we cut to what I assume is maybe a couple of days in the future, and Dustin and Zach are at the hospital and Scott is better, but he has no memory of what happened. He doesn't know like how he ended up in the hospital, so he has no recollection of the doll attacking him. And they're like, bro, it's better that you don't remember. But while they're at the hospital, the nurse comes up to them and she's like, some woman wants to talk to you. So Zach is kind of like, is she human? And Dustin's like, bro, chill, like it's not a doll, which is crazy to me because you literally just got attacked by several of them and you don't think it's a possibility this is a doll. So they go out to see the woman, and it's Cherie, and they get in the car with her. She says that there was a suicide at her brother's apartment building and the person was dead with a doll in the apartment. And they're saying that's not possible. Like, we killed all those dolls, even though we don't see that. They just went in the house and left. Like, okay. I don't remember who said this, but someone says that the dolls were actually made by the millions. And so it's pretty much impossible to kill all of them because there's so many out there. Then we see a group of the dolls run up to the car, start banging on the car, and they pull off, and that is the end of the movie. That's the end of the movie. No resolution, true resolution. We don't know what happened to them. There's no way they didn't stop the dolls. It was so abrupt. It was literally like, you think there's gonna be some action, like literally the dolls ran up to the car, banged on the car, they pulled off 2 feet. End of the movie. End of the movie. No more dialogue, no nothing. That's it. This movie was only 1 hour and 13 minutes, but it honestly could have been maybe 40. There was a lot of I felt like it was a lot of unneeded stuff. It could be worse though. 1 hour and 13 is not too bad for what it is. It could be worse. It really could. But about that halfway mark, I was just like, is this over yet? When is this ending? So if you like this video, give it a like. If you have any movie suggestions, leave them in the comments. I will definitely be back on Tubi searching for another terrible movie to watch. I already have a couple of ideas, and while I was looking for more info on Tiffany the doll, I found a bunch more terrible movies. So stay tuned for that.